Last night, the Golden State Warriors faced the Miami Heat. This was a matchup between Jimmy Butler's former team. And like any other player, when you play your former team, it's always a grudge match, a match in which you want to win. You want to get revenge on your former team, especially if you didn't go out in a proper way, which we know Jimmy Butler and Miami Heat's relationship didn't end well, and hence why he was traded. It was pretty rocky between him and the coaching staff and ownership and Pat Riley. He just left on bad terms, and that's why they traded him. So Jimmy was definitely inspired to play great basketball against his former team. He did have a good game, 17 points on 6-11 shooting, 4 assists, 2 turnovers, 2 steals, two rebounds total, I believe. So he had overall a really good game in only 21 minutes. And I felt that him and the Warriors achieved a Pyrrhic victory in defeating Miami last night. For those of you who don't know, a Pyrrhic victory is a win achieved at such a devastating cost that it amounts to a defeat. And you can definitely say that happened with the Warriors in this game, with Jimmy Butler getting hurt in the third quarter and tearing his ACL. This was a huge blow to the Warriors, especially considering that they were going through a resurgence of late. I think they had won something like 10 of their last 13. I'm not precise about it, but they were putting together a good stretch of basketball. They were on a 4-game win streak, and it looked like things were starting to line up for them. Butler was having a really good season. Excuse me. He had a season in which he was averaging 20 points a game on 51.9% overall shooting from the field, 37.6% shooting from three, averaging 5.6 rebounds and 4.9 assists. I felt those numbers probably get you into an All-Star game in any other year if your team is winning. Granted, in the Warriors' case, they're an 8 seed, so I don't think they would have given him an All-Star bid. But if they were winning, I think he probably would have gone in. So he was putting up All-Star numbers. He was earning his money and giving the Warriors confidence that they could possibly pull off an upset during the playoffs if they make it in as a low seed like they did last year with him. However, by tearing his ACL, all the Warriors' dreams for having an upset season is over. It's completely over. You could put a fork in them. I don't see this team doing anything in the playoffs if they even get into the playoffs. I think without Jimmy Butler, they just don't have enough to pull off an upset, which is what I felt this team was really playing for being honest. The Warriors' formula the last few years is basically get a low seed, get into the playoffs, play an inexperienced young team such as the Kings and last year the Rockets, take advantage of their inexperience and eventually defeat them in a grueling 7-game series in which Stephen Curry has to play on God mode to get the win, then go to round two and get your ass whooped. That's happened the last few years, and I felt even with Jimmy Butler, that would have been no different. They probably could have pulled off an upset against an inexperienced team. I felt like, they were probably targeting the Spurs since they have zero playoff experience for the most part, outside of De'Aaron Fox and Harrison Barnes, and hoping for the same magic. And now I don't see that happening. I just don't see it happening. But I think this team being a title contender was done several years ago, but it kind of gave them a false sense of, I would say, delusion in believing that they could still win it all because of their recent playoff success of getting out of the first round. But I think now they can't really hide from that with Jimmy Butler being gone for the rest of this season, that they were not a title contender to begin with, but now it's official they're not a title contender. And what they do next, I think, will be interesting, because now they'd ask themselves the question, do they keep Jonathan Kuminga or do they trade him? Because they played this game with him the last year or two in which they refused to let him go despite not having any plans for him. It's clear Kuminga does not want to be a Warrior. He hates playing for Golden State. He wanted to even sign with Sacramento during the summertime, but they stopped it due to him being a restricted free agent. So the Kings didn't make him an offer, but had he not been a restricted free agent, they were willing to offer the farm to get him, and when it came to paying him the money. But knowing the situation, the Kings decided, like, hey, we'll just wait a year or two when you're actually an unrestricted free agent, and we don't have to do even a trade with the Warriors because they're just asking way too much for Kuminga. And that's been the issue with the Warriors of late with Kuminga. They have demanded so much in return because I think they know that Kuminga will become a star the moment he leaves the Warriors. That once he does have to play in their system, he's going to be a really good player. That he's just not a good complement to Stephen Curry, but they keep sabotaging him in the sense they're just like, well, we can't let you go because then we look like idiots if you blow up somewhere else. Also, we want to get some assets in return to make sure that our draft pick that we used on you isn't wasted. So the Warriors have to make that decision. Like, do they just keep him or do they trade him? I personally think they should trade him and just let him do what he wants to do on some other team instead of wasting his time. But now it's hard to say. Maybe they'll start him now and give him the minutes. Still, he won't be able to fulfill Jimmy Butler's role in their system. I just don't see it. So that will be very interesting. To me, he's like the only valuable trade asset they really have on their team. I look at the rest of their team. None of these guys just strike me as guys that you would really want on your team. I look at even a guy like Pods. You can say he's a solid role player, but he's not a guy who can get you a star in a trade. And some of these other guys are just over the hill, like Al Horford, Buddy Hield. He's an okay player, and so it's a tough situation for the Warriors. And like I said, they're finished. I can't say I feel bad for them with all the stuff Draymond does with his front running, his gimmicks, and how Stephen Curry and Steve Kerr encourages that stuff. So I don't feel bad for them, and I think this is the end of them, and it's a fitting way for them to go out. So that's all I have to say.